Insurgency released in 2014, yet nearly 500,000 people still play it daily, and I'd say this is a pretty big achievement, especially for a tactical shooter. So obviously this game gets things right, and we're going to explore it alongside drawing some comparisons to its sequel Sandstorm, which some people regard as inferior. But to a lot of you, this game is special because it might be the first tactical shooter you got into, or you might feel nostalgic. I feel this weird hybrid nostalgia because all my friends were playing this back in high school and they were telling me this game is hardcore because there's no ammo counter and you die in 1 or 2 hits. It was the hottest item at my school, and it isn't until now I can finally appreciate why people were head over heels for this game. But Insurgency is a tactical shooter that is built off of Valve's Source engine, because originally in 2007 it was a mod called Insurgency Modern Infantry Combat, and in 2012 they raised funds for Insurgency 2, which is technically the first official game. The naming can get a little confusing depending on who you ask, but it is set in Iraq and Afghanistan. But the game is broken down into 2 factions, that being the security forces, or the Americans, and you also have the insurgents. And you can select appropriate weaponry that is divided into a class system that prevents everyone from being able to equip sniper rifles or an RPG. You'll find the general rifleman class can equip assault rifles, whereas breachers can equip close range weapons such as shotguns and SMGs, as well as C4 that'll send the infidels to hell. But the explosions in this game are extremely deadly, and I did misjudge just how wide the explosive range of grenades were, but this is also exacerbated by the map layouts, mostly being tight city streets, which also allows you to get hit from multiple different angles, but also allows you to set up nice ambushes. But one compliment that I see given to Insurgency, especially when compared to Sandstorm, is that the map design is much better. Now, one thing that I like about the game is the overall atmosphere that it creates. Now, while they aren't necessarily based on real-world locations, they aren't portrayed as some generic Middle Eastern country, similar to how Far Cry 2 has the unnamed African country, but in Far Cry 2 they have an actual reasoning as to why they went with an unnamed African country, which you could see in a video here. But I like how they use real country flags of these Middle Eastern countries, as well as some of them even having iconography of Saddam Hussein. But one thing that I absolutely love is the background noise. You can hear gunshots in the distance, as well as jets that are flying over. You can look in the sky, but you don't actually see them. But I'm gonna be honest, I was put on edge because when I first started playing this game, I didn't know if there were commander abilities or not, and when I heard a jet or a helicopter flying over, I was expecting to get bombed, but thankfully that didn't happen. But it's not just these things, you can hear animals as well as people speaking, and this really sets the tone of where you are. You're in a Middle Eastern country, people actually live here. People go about their daily lives, but they've suddenly disappeared. Where they've gone, they've most likely gone back into their homes, so they don't get caught up in a battle that's raging on outside. And I didn't get that same feeling from Sandstorm that I'm walking around in a foreign country and then I can hear all these background noises. But I also like the propaganda that's placed throughout the maps. It's even in the schools.
Weapons of mass destruction.
But similar to Sandstorm's class system, I like how you get an allowance that extends from what attachments you want to equip all the way to what kind of body armor you want to bring into the field. Because you can get a really nice fancy gun and pimp it out, but that might leave you as a glass cannon opposed to taking a more moderate approach of taking heavy armor but being a little less effective in the firearms department. And this also extends to night maps. Do you want to be able to see clearly at a distance with NVGs, or equip a crappy flashlight, or even not bring anything at all and be left at a significant disadvantage? But this gets me thinking on how I can adapt to the environment and what kind of opposition that I'm facing against. And one thing I like compared to Sandstorm is you can't go too over the top with the weapon customization, in the sense sense you aren't equipping drum mags to assault rifles and making outlandish combos that might get you yelled at by a superior officer. But this leads me on to one thing that I like about Insurgency over Sandstorm is that there's no paid cosmetics. All the characters in Insurgency look uniform, and the only difference is dependent on the class and type of armor that you're picking. There's also no weapon skins. Some of the weapons have some wear and tear on them to give them a little bit more of a personality, which I like. But staying on the topic of firearms, one of my favorite things about Sandstorm is the animations. They are so satisfying and well done, and I extend the same compliment to Insurgency. Everything feels so fluid. Recoil patterns are unpredictable. If you move too close to a wall, you won't be able to fire. They also sound really good, but I'd say Sandstorm has the edge on weapon sounds.
Weapon!
But not only shooting, but getting shot at sounds really good, because as you slide from cover to cover, you can see debris go flying as well as sparks as bullets hit metal. And knowing all it takes is one bullet really does put you on edge. Also the fact that you can hear the enemy's comms, which can consist of Arabic music or someone taking the game a little too seriously and abusing their teammates. I wish more games had this system, especially squad or PR, but oh well. But this leads me on to how the flow of gameplay feels, and while it is a tactical shooter, it's more on the RS2 side of things in the sense that it's fast paced, but has elements that inhibit you from running around like a terrorist on drugs, which is basically the Taliban. But the map sizes, I'd say, are very small. They feel smaller than Sandstorm's maps, but they also have different types of areas that can be watched by a sniper or cut off by a person sitting in the corner with a shotgun. But anyone can pick this game up, join a server, and not have to think too hard or commit yourself to a session that can last upwards of an hour, and everyone is, I'd say, on an even playing field since there is no unlocks and everyone has access to pretty much the same things. So to really get the advantage, you have to play and get better, which is why I was getting absolutely bent over and shot before I even had a chance to react in certain situations. But in regards to movement, the speed is fast and responsive. You can alternate between walking and to a full-on sprint, since hearing footsteps does help, similar to games like in CSGO.
Bro, who just gave me that dog-ass AK?
But for someone new such as me, this fast movement gave me the illusion that I can run around and play for kills, which is not what you want to do. Depending on the game mode you play, usually you have to defend objective sites, and if they are left unattended, you are going to lose. But to draw some more comparisons between Insurgency and Sandstorm is, for starters, Insurgency can run on pretty crappy computers since it's made on the Source engine, as well it's a fairly oldish game. It sounds so wrong saying 2014 is old, but it's also cheaper by about $10 where I live, and if you can get it on sale, you can't go wrong, either games for that matter. But another difference is the community made content. When playing Sandstorm, I never really encountered servers running modded content, but I suppose things might be different now. But I managed to get into a gun game server in Insurgency, and I don't think my ears are ever going to recover from it, and I actually do have some hearing loss, medically diagnosed mind you, and this was just too much for my ears, but it was fun nonetheless. Another difference is that Sandstorm also has some quality of life improvements, such as fast reloading and being able to kick indoors. I always found that fun, but there's no commander abilities in Insurgency such as A10 strikes or chemical weapons. Some might say this is a good thing because the game doesn't feel like Call of Duty, but personally I disagree. I like the commander call-ins because it added a little bit more lethality to the game, because the A10 just sounds absolutely sexy. and also putting on a gas mask and running through a cloud of Geneva violating gas is something that I really liked about Sandstorm. But there's also no vehicles, but I wouldn't even think some of the maps would even be able to support it. But in conclusion, both games are really good, but you also can't go wrong in trying the OG, especially since there are still populated servers to this day. There is also bot support for both games, but experience may vary since they can either be straight up brain dead or they can 360 no scope you, but they aren't on the scale of Ready or Not bots, which is, I'm always going to be referring back to them as bad bot support. I mean, it's there, but Jesus Christ, they're frustrating. But nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please leave a like, it greatly does help, and I would recommend that you check out the video that is on screen. Anyways, my name is Tan2, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.